the next briefing on the big picture track will be the Christopher Columbus Rule and DHS, being presented by Mark Weatherford.
Thank you. Boy, following Bruce Schneier is like the toughest act in the world, but I'm glad we had that little 30-minute break, so maybe your minds have rejuvenated just a little bit. 15 years of Black Hat, that's pretty cool. Just the fact that we're here today, 15 years later, I think is a testament to the staying power and relevance of the security community. Back in 1999, I was still in the Navy, and Black Hat was still kind of a scary place for government and military people to be. And one of my guys, Sean Murphy, Sean, you're not here, are you? Sean Murphy said, "Hey, sir, I think we need to go to this Black Hat and DEF CON event." And so I went to our skipper and I said, "Hey, can I let Murphy and another guy grow their hair out and grow a beard for like a month or so they can kind of fit in a little bit better?" And we actually got to do that. So Murphy was running around out here looking pretty shaggy as a Navy guy. It was kind of a cool time. We had a pretty good skipper that allowed us to do that. In the late 90s, computers were still pretty expensive and not a lot of people had them. I can remember I bought a computer in the early 90s, then I was still using it. And you know, today everybody has 2 or 3 or even a server farm in their house. More importantly, though, there was no such thing as free internet access. And if you think about that, now we get pretty hacked off when we go someplace and we can't get free Wi-Fi. And I know I get kind of ticked off when I go to a hotel room and have to pay $14.95 for 24 hours of crummy service. Wow. Oh, do you got to pay here? Sorry. Anyway, there was a lot to be learned back then, and there weren't a lot of people doing security. There also weren't a lot of conferences and no real forum where people could get together and learn like we are here at Black Hat now. So at Black Hat, you could actually meet people. And in the early days, you could actually meet people that were coming up with the cool hacks and developing the new stuff and build relationships with them and actually learn from the people that were doing it. It was also a place where you could begin to build trust, and the security community exists because of the trust relationships that we have with each other. And you know, most of these relationships, those of you that are actually in the practitioner business, the relationships, those trust relationships are really what make the world go around. A lot of them are very informal. You call up somebody that you know that might have a solution to a problem. Those are the way a lot of problems get fixed now. There also weren't a lot of security jobs back then, if you think about it. I know that there was in the late 90s, I don't think there was any CSO jobs or CISO jobs. Like maybe a few, but I mean, they were very few and far between. When I went to Colorado in 2004 as the state CISO, I was the first guy in the job. But most people, back then, most people still thought of security as a hobby more than a profession. So if you think about that for a second, the jobs that many of you are doing right now today didn't even exist at the first DEF CON. That's pretty wild. Back then, the World Wide Web was pretty new. Mosaic had just come out a couple years early in 1993, and Google wasn't even founded yet. Google was founded in 1998, the year after the first Black Hat. So if you had a problem or a question or you needed help with something, it was a lot harder to find the answer to it back then. Black Hat opened the door for us to meet people that we would never normally get a chance to meet. Think of the people that are in here sitting around you right now. This didn't exist 15 years ago. The collaboration that you're able to do today. You know, meeting with researchers, meeting with government and military technologists, meeting with publishers. You know, these things, these avenues just simply never existed before. Black Hat was the first forum for people to get together and begin collaborating in ways where we could learn from each other, develop new tools, and get better at protecting both our companies and the nation. So, you're probably wondering, what the heck does all this have to do with the Department of Homeland Security and the Christopher Columbus rule. In fact, you're probably wondering, what is the Christopher Columbus rule? Well, the Deputy Secretary at DHS is probably one of the smartest people I know in my entire life. And in fact, she keynoted here 2 years ago, I think. And what she calls the Christopher Columbus rule is never fail to distinguish what's new from what's new to you. So what I want to talk about today is the perception or conception that you may have about the government and about the Department of Homeland Security, because it's probably not what you think it is. Some of the things that we're doing goes against the concept, and government has become very good over the years at dealing with incidents in the physical security world, but the cyber environment over the past couple of years has made us think differently because, as my friend, many of you guys know Tom Kellerman from Trend Micro, Tom recently wrote an article and said, now anyone can download a cyber Kalashnikov, a cyber getaway car, and a cyber grenade. It's a pretty true statement. One thing I want to tell you up front is that I don't think that I'm smarter than you. I don't think the government is smarter than you. And I don't think I understand your business or your company better than you. I have different responsibilities, different information, and I see different kinds of threats and vulnerabilities, but you can say the same thing. Having recently come from the private sector, my eyes have opened a little wider now, and I have different perspectives of the same problem, and occasionally, but I don't want to think that I'm so arrogant as to believe that the government has all the answers, or think that I know how to fix your problems better than you do. The mission of DHS is to ensure a safe, secure, resilient place where the American way of life can thrive. That reminds me of, some of you are old enough to remember the old Superman show that came on every day. It started with truth, justice, and the American way. It always makes me think of that when I see the mission of DHS. But anyway, while government isn't historically known for innovation or thinking outside the box, that's changed a lot over the past couple of years, and technology has caused a lot of that shift. Specifically, I think about the way that we've been driven to approach cybersecurity has caused us to be more flexible in the way we both develop and implement security solutions and services. While we're hiring a lot of people from the private sector who are bringing entirely new concepts of thinking to the government. And I've been at DHS for just about 7 months now and been focused on hiring people who have a reputation for thinking outside the box. This has been a little unsettling for some people in the government, but the 21st century is a terrible time to be a control freak in my mind. In fact, when Secretary Napolitano appointed Jeff Moss to the Homeland Security Advisory Council a couple of years ago, I think there were a number of raised eyebrows, especially from this community here at Black Hat. But Jeff is also now co-chairing a DHS task force on cybersecurity workforce issues. And I've never asked Jeff this question specifically, but I'd pretty much guarantee that if anyone asked him or told him 10 years ago that he'd be working so closely with the government, that he probably would have suffocated from laughter. So anyway, I'm here today representing the Department of Homeland Security because I want to tell you about some of the things that we're doing, but more importantly, some of the things that I think we have in common and things I hope that we can hopefully challenge you to think about. So you're all here at Black Hat to learn about new technologies, new techniques, and new opportunities, and no matter what your motivation is, and I know there are a lot of different motivations for being here, whether it's looking for 0 days, writing new apps, or just trying to figure out a better way to run your business, I ultimately think, or at least I hope, that we're all here and we all care about national security. I can't legitimately call myself a hacker any longer, but I've been in this business my entire life. Most of my time in the Navy, I was in the cryptologic community, and security was always part of what we were doing. And I know I have a few old shipmates that are here in the crowd today that were part of the great times back then. The United States is both a cyber power and a cyber target. The critical infrastructure our society depends on every day relies heavily on technology that's also dependent on cybersecurity. Sean Henry talked a lot about that in his keynote yesterday, so I'm not going to go over it a whole lot. but I am going to touch on a few things. Our economic vitality as a nation is dependent on the critical infrastructure systems we need for communications, transportation, electricity, water, and just about everything else. Defending our critical infrastructures that support our businesses and government require innovation and bold thinking, and that's where everyone in this room has the power to get involved. Partnerships, collaboration, and information sharing are essential to cybersecurity. The more partners we have, the better protected and less vulnerable we'll all be. No one company, community, government, agency, or country can succeed alone in today's environment. It's slowly going away, but I still think there's a perception by some that the government is clueless in the cyber arena. And I'm here to tell you that that is not true. While there's certainly some government organizations, just like private sector organizations, and some that are more mature than others, we're also pretty technically advanced. We have a lot of really smart people doing some fairly advanced work. And I want to talk a little bit about that now, about some of those things. We have three primary cyber responsibilities at the Department of Homeland Security. We secure the federal civilian agency networks, the .gov environment. We help the private sector primarily in the critical infrastructure arena. And we lead and coordinate the response to cyber incidents of national significance. In 2011, U.S. CERT received over 106,000 incident reports from the government and the private sector. They also issued more than 5,200 alerts and advisories. If you do the math, that's almost 300 incident reports and over 14 alerts and advisories every single day of the year. Our Industrial Control Systems CERT conducted 78 on-site assessments of control system entities and made recommendations to those companies on how they could improve their cybersecurity posture. The ICS CERT also distributed more than 1,100 copies of our CSET tool and conducted more than 40 industrial control system training sessions, both at our facility in Idaho Falls and the road shows that we took around the country. And has anybody in here been to any of the ICS training? I see a few hands. If you've been to the facility, or if you get an opportunity to go to the facility in Idaho Falls, it is, I've seen different setups around the world and around the country. The facility we have in Idaho Falls is the absolute best training facility in the world, bar none, especially with the around industrial control system. It's absolutely unbelievable. If you ever get a chance to go through the training up there, it's a week long. You will be better for it. The nation will be better for it because you are. We pay particular attention to industrial control systems, and last year we deployed 7 response teams to critical infrastructure organizations at their response and at the request and response to incidents. We also operate the National Cybersecurity Communications Integration Center, or NCIC, which is the nexus of cybersecurity information sharing for both the public and the private sector. Participants in our 24/7 operation include a variety of civilian, federal, and law enforcement organizations. We actually have a watch floor where everyone sits together. So we have members of the financial sector, members of the electricity sector, members of law enforcement, FBI, Secret Service, and a variety of different government organizations all working together. And I can tell you, there's some real magic that happens when you're sitting next to someone from a different organization in a different sector, and you start talking about, well, I've seen this kind of event, or I've seen this kind of vulnerability. There's a lot of interesting interaction that takes place there. To combat cybercrime, we work very closely with the Secret Service, Immigrations and Customs Enforcement, and the FBI, and a variety of other law enforcement organizations, both at the federal, state, and local level. So not only do we have a lot of exciting and important work going on with our operations, we participate in some pretty advanced technology research. The Research and Development Department of our Science and Technology Directorate sponsors a number of research projects that have resulted in new technology and continues to drive new initiatives. Long gone are the days of mil-spec standard, when 20 to 30 years ago in the military, you couldn't buy anything that didn't have a mil-spec label on it. Probably a few of you remember mil-spec. You couldn't even, a ballpoint pen had a mil-spec label on it. We controlled the supply chain pretty closely back then. The internet and technology revolution has changed, and not always for the best. Supply chain lifecycle awareness of all the different technologies and software we use today, both in the public and the private sector, is an incredible challenge. The 2003 National Strategy to Secure Cyberspace, I know it was a long time ago, but they identified 2 internet protocols, DNS and BGP, that needed updating to make them more secure. DHS has provided both funding and leadership, and many of you know Dr. Doug Mon, who I think is a national treasure. And Doug has absolutely led out on making DNSSEC available. And DNSSEC continues to roll out to the .gov, .mil, .com, .net, .org, .edu, and over 70 country codes, top-level domains have been signed. That wouldn't have happened, quite frankly, without Doug Mon's leadership and DHS pushing forward on that, I think. We're also providing funding for the development and employment of BGPSEC. Doug is leading that also. And those protocol modifications are currently going through the IETF standards process. I talked to Doug yesterday, and he told me that he's also providing funding for the development of RPKI, or Routing Public Key Infrastructure, which provides signatures on address blocks provided to registers and ISPs. Excuse me. So what else are we doing at DHS? I'm keyed on 3 primary areas that I believe we need to stay focused on to make the nation stronger, and they include building a world-class workforce at DHS and the nation, strengthening partnerships across the government and private sector, and achieving operational excellence within the government. So building a world-class workforce for DHS and the nation. Over the past 20 years, we've had to constantly reinvent ourselves as security professionals because, as you all know, change is the name of the game. The things I worry about today are not the things I was worrying about 12 months ago, and probably not the things I'm going to worry about 12 months from now. Even at DHS, we've had to evolve in the 9 years since the department was formed, from combining almost 24 agencies and departments. And that's been a challenge, as you can well imagine. 4 years ago, there were about 40 people in my organization, and today we have almost 400 doing everything from running the NCIC, US CERT, ICS CERT, to our national cybersecurity training programs and our security awareness campaigns. We have a very broad mission at DHS with respect to cybersecurity for the entire, not only for the government, for the entire nation. Just like you and your jobs, our workload continues to grow, which means we need more and better trained people all the time. Just a quick survey here. This is non-scientific. How many people have all of the well-talented, well-qualified cybersecurity people in your organizations that you would like to have? Usually one person raises their hand. Not one person. Well, as I said, I've been doing this a long time. I've been running large organizations for about 15 years, and I have never had all of the qualified people that I needed either. Some of it is, you're always limited by resources, but also you're limited by the number of qualified people that are even available. So I think we have a problem as a nation, and the problem is that there's just not enough smart people to help protect us, protect our private sector companies or our government. And you are the people that we depend on for national security and the economic vitality of the nation. Identifying, cultivating, and creating the next generation of cybersecurity professionals is critical to our economic viability and the security of our society. That's not an overstatement. I don't think it's hyperbole, and I can't overemphasize how important it is. I was in Mountain View a couple of weeks ago talking with some companies, and met with a couple of startups. Talked with one outfit. They were 4 years old. They'd started with 4 people. They now had 77 people, and that's a great success story in our economy. The problem is they had 55 vacancies that they can't find the right people for, and this is a security company. So they're out recruiting, looking for people, and they simply can't find the quality of people that they need, and that's replicated. I talk to companies across the country, and everyone is having this problem. Obviously evidence, no one raised their hand when I asked if you had all the talent you need. The resource pool for people with cyber expertise is small, and it's too small in my mind, and the current pipeline isn't growing fast enough to meet the nation's needs. I'm talking about really talented people too. You know, oftentimes we advertise for a job and we get dozens and dozens of resumes, but when you dig down and you interview and you ask really hard questions, to be the ninja type, there's just not a lot of them out there. And, you know, I'm sure that this audience is full of them. But we need more. They're just not, I'm talking about the kind of people that you hire into your organization, you can build the organization around. I know about a dozen or so of them that I think if I could get all of them in one room, I could rule the world. Scott King, you out there? So I'm not sure we'll ever get to the point where kids identify with wanting to be a geek, but as I go around the country, one of the things I see is, you know, kids don't even realize that they can do this for a living. I met with some high school kids last week, and you know, they were in this afternoon group, and as I was talking, I said, you know, you guys are in demand. When you graduate from high school, you graduate from college, somebody's going to want to hire you. And they had never really grasped it. In fact, I got a couple emails from them over the weekend, and they said, no one's ever told us that before, that we could actually make a living out of doing this. So I think it's pretty cool that, you know, that we're doing this on a lot of fronts, but we're not doing enough of it. And that's where government and industry need to work together on changing the public perception and actually figure out how to make cybersecurity cool. The Department of Homeland Security is taking active measures to cultivate the next generation of cyber professionals, including programs like our partnership with the National Institutes of Standards and Technology in a nationally coordinated effort focused on cybersecurity awareness, education, training, and professional development. The program is called the National Initiative for Cybersecurity Education, or NICE. I wish I would have been around when they were putting that acronym together, because I wouldn't have called it NICE. I mean, what self-respecting hacker wants to belong to a group called NICE? I would have named it bad or mean or ugly or something, I don't know. We also have a partnership with the National Security Agency for the National Centers for Academic Excellence, which help by promoting higher education and producing graduates with cybersecurity expertise at 145 universities and colleges across the country. Our partnership with the National Science Foundation on the Scholarship for Service program, or SFS. Anybody in here been part of SFS? 1, 2, awesome, awesome. I think this is a great program. So you get a scholarship for up to 2 years in exchange for working for the federal government for the same amount of time. So this is a win-win. Not only are we adding to the pool of talented people, but the government gets first crack at hiring people to come back in and start getting some expertise. DHS is also a sponsor of the National Collegiate Cyber Defense Competition. I attended the championships in San Antonio a couple months ago, and I tell companies all the time, if you don't have people attending these events in your company, your recruiters, you're missing an incredible opportunity. There were 80 kids in this program, at the final competition, and every single one of them had multiple companies taking their resumes, and I took a number of resumes myself. I mean, these are the kind of people that live and breathe cybersecurity, and they're the kind of people that we want back in our organizations. So one of my loftier goals, and I don't want anyone laughing, is to make DHS a stop on cybersecurity professionals' career path. A career in government service isn't for everyone, and I realize that. I'm not naive enough to think that everyone wants to or will even work in the government. But we have some very cool work, we have very cool tools, and we have a cool mission. And that mission is to protect the nation. So I tell people to come work for us, work for the government, work for DHS, work for DOD, work for one of the other federal agencies for 1 or 2 or 3 years. Get some experience under your belt. I mean, it's a great resume builder. And then go out and go in the private sector, or then go out and make your $1 million, go and develop your own products. We hire great people at DHS, and to keep their skills fresh, we focus on training our current cyber workforce through a variety of programs, including entry-level training where we bring people in and we provide some basic kind of training as they move along. We have cyber rotations where we move people through the different organizations within DHS, within the Secret Service, within ICE. We're looking at some programs where we can start moving them to other federal agencies. I talked with someone yesterday from the Army Research Lab who wants to begin participating in this. I've even talked with some private sector companies, some large private sector companies in Silicon Valley that want to do this kind of trading of people, bring people into the government, let them work for 6 months or a year, and then go back to their company. I think this is a kind of fresh and innovative thinking that that we haven't done a lot of in the government in the past. We do formal mentoring where we actually buddy people up with somebody that's a graybeard that's got a little bit more experience and help walk them through their first year or two, learn the ropes of how the government operates, which is a challenge, by the way, but also learn their professional skills. And we also have a master's level program where employees can get a master's degree in cybersecurity through the Naval Postgraduate School, my alma mater, or another local university. DHS employees also have the opportunity for advanced work with some of our partners like the Software Engineering Institute at Carnegie Mellon, the Idaho National Labs program, and even the Secret Service has a Computer Forensics Institute in Huntsville, Alabama that we allow people to go and get some new experience in. So we have a variety of cyber missions at DHS, and in case you didn't pick up on it, I'm trying to convince you that it's a cool place to work. So come and talk to me about it later on. So my second goal is strengthening partnerships across government and the private sector. Information sharing and public-private partnerships are things we've heard about for years. And in fact, I think we've probably heard too much about them, and they've kind of lost their aura. But I think they're critical to our success as a nation, for the private sector and the public sector to work together, to collaborate together. The private sector owns and operates about 85% of the nation's critical infrastructures. So collaboration is critical, and partnerships add a lot of value to our efforts. That 85% figure, you know what, I've asked a lot of times where that number comes from. I think it's fairly accurate. I think it may be like 90%. But if you think about it, all of the telecommunications, all of the electric utilities, all of the transportation systems, those are all owned by the private sector. And think of how much we depend on them just for society to operate on a daily basis. So as I mentioned earlier, the circles of trust might be the most important component of our business. Socrates said, I bet this is a first, no one has ever quoted Socrates at Black Hat. Maybe. The way to gain a good reputation is to endeavor to be what you desire to appear. So I think this describes the trust model pretty well because it's all about having credibility. So we all know that partnerships are important. And it's my job to make sure DHS continues to strengthen them, to build trusted relationships, and to cultivate them so they result in real information sharing. Finally, my third goal is achieving operational excellence. There are threats everywhere, and we all see them. You in the private sector see the same and different threats. I mean, it's not like it's something unique or novel to say that we all see threats. And I've already talked about many of the things that we're doing at DHS to deal with the threat. And I want DHS to continue leading security for the federal government. It's kind of a new role for us. It's something we've evolved into over the last couple of years. You think about it, there was never really a center of gravity within the federal government for cybersecurity. DoD has done a lot of work for a number of years in the cyberspace, but no one has really been responsible for the civilian sector or the civilian federal agencies. And DHS, we're growing into our skin on that. I also want us to be the key organization that the private sector looks to for help in securing the critical infrastructure systems. And the NCIC right now is that organization within DHS that I think people are migrating to. The response that we're getting, both incoming and outgoing, for what we're doing at the NCIC is just growing by leaps and bounds daily. Thank you. So not only were we looking to hire the best people we can find and build a great talent pool at DHS, we're also developing and implementing some of the very best products and services available. We're also focused on streamlining our operational areas so that efficiency and consistency are embedded in everything we do. You've all heard the story that you don't have to outrun the bear, you just have to outrun your buddy. I think we need to apply this theme to cybersecurity and raise the bar in organizations so high that we're not a target, so that bad guys go somewhere else to look for an easy way to get in. We don't have to run faster than bear, we just have to make the bear go look for somewhere else. I'd rather be a target of opportunity than a target of choice any day. So I'd like to leave you with 3 challenges, and that'll help us in our defense of the nation and in fact in your own companies. My first challenge is to continue talking about security to everyone. Tell people how important cybersecurity is and how they have a role to play. This is a shared responsibility. You are the champions, so help raise the awareness level by speaking at a school or sponsor a high school team of kids wanting to learn cybersecurity. Probably not a week goes by that I don't get a call from a teacher somewhere in the country at either the grade school level or at the high school level that says, hey, I really want to know more about this so I can teach my kids. And I usually have kind of a list of people that I say, call John or call Sally, or they're experts in this arena and they want to help. I propose that to you, that you take that up as a challenge. I was at Cal Poly Pomona last week. They held a cyber camp. It's a competition where people compete to get into the camp. You normally have 30 to 40 openings for the program. They had 37 people in it last week. The last day of the program is a capture the flag event. So not only are they getting 4 days of it's SANS Institute training, the last day they get a cyber or a CTF competition. Dr. Dan Manson from Cal Poly. Dan, are you here? I thought he was going to be here. He is running, and Dan is just one of many, but he is running an incredible program at Cal Poly Pomona for cybersecurity. I mean, he is turning out the kind of people out of his program there. I don't know if you're familiar with what a polytechnic university is. They learn by doing. So it's not, they don't go to classes all the time. There's a lab with every class they take at Cal Poly Pomona. So the kids that are coming out of there, I mean, they have hands-on experience. They have 4 years of hands-on experience. They're really, really bright people. And these are the kind of programs that I encourage companies to support. If you think about it, you're the ultimate beneficiaries of it. As people that come out, these are the people that you want to hire in your organizations. The better prepared they are, the better off you are. I met a high school teacher last week, Yenny Yee. She was at Franklin High School, and she said, I need help. One of her students 2 years ago said, hey, I want to start this program. And so she did, but she doesn't know anything about security, doesn't know anything about technology. But what she did is she facilitated an area where some kids that weren't involved in other things could get together. And I talked with 3 of these guys, and I'm not kidding you. It was heartwarming to see what they were doing, and just to see that they were actually learning something. They wanted to contribute and give something back to the community. So the second challenge is to do whatever you can to make security less complicated and confusing for the average consumer. How many times have we heard that complexity is the enemy of good security? We need to continue getting better about building security in so there's less for the consumer to worry about. Scott Charney from Microsoft tells a funny story. He's got a 4-year-old son and an 80-year-old mother. And he said they both have the same problem. His 4-year-old son, he'll be on the computer and a pop-up will come up to do something, and his son just clicks right through it because he can't read. his 80-year-old mother, who, by the way, has a PhD, she'll be on the computer and a pop-up comes up and she clicks right through it. She can read it, she just doesn't know what it means. So we have this problem. You know, we make things too hard for the consumer, for the average consumer. I talk to my father every weekend. So when I see his phone number come up on my cell phone, I know it's Dad, and you know we're going to have a little chat. If it's on Saturday and Sunday. If I get a call any other day of the week, usually on a Tuesday or a Wednesday night, I know that there's some kind of a computer problem, or there's some kind of, he's going to ask me something that I'm going to try to have troubleshoot over 3,000 miles away. And he's not really good at explaining this stuff. We have to make it easier for the consumer to deal with this. So it's said that you can recover from a poor decision, but you can't recover from indecision. So my final challenge is to execute. Take your ideas and innovations and do something positive with them. Tony Sager likes to say, automate everything you can, and when you get done, figure out how to automate everything that's left. That's innovative thinking. Rich Betlick is the CSO at Mandiant. Many of you probably know Rich. He was quoted a couple months ago as saying that the average cyber espionage attack goes on for 416 days before the average company discovers it's been hacked. We as a community have to get better about executing to change that perception. So when you think about how far technology has come since the first Black Hat 15 years ago, it's pretty amazing. Now we as a nation need everyone to be engaged in the effort to raise the national cybersecurity IQ. Thank you very much. Am I going to take some questions? I have a couple minutes for questions if anybody has anything. You're going to have to speak really loud because I have really bad hearing. Yeah, go ahead.
So what kind of security engineering is pretty broad, or cybersecurity is pretty broad, right? There's security engineers, there's network defenders, there's assessors, there's malware analysis. So can you break down a little bit what kind of, I know you're looking broad, but a little bit more on the details.
So that's actually a really good question. And asking someone in the federal government to answer that is almost impossible. But I do have good news. That is one of the things that Jeff Moss and the task force is looking at, is how do we actually define different job descriptions that are a little bit more consistent. So you understand this. You obviously understand, when you say, I'm looking for somebody with cybersecurity expertise. Do I want somebody that can analyze malware? Do I want somebody that can manage a firewall? Do I want somebody that can write router ACLs? I mean, it's all over the map. I agree with you. I mean, and you have the traditional, I want a network engineer, I want a sysadmin, I want a firewall guy. I don't think there's any consistency right now. But I know, and this is a terrible way to answer your question, I know it when I see it. When I'm talking to somebody and I can ask a couple of questions, I know immediately whether they're BSing or whether they actually have the knowledge.
I have a
Yes,
question.
sir.
I'm sorry.
Hang on, right here first.
You didn't mention your biggest workforce, and that's the Coast Guard. That's the biggest agency you got there. So what's your plans? What's your plans for utilizing that? We haven't seen anything from that.
His question is, I didn't mention the Coast Guard, and I apologize. The Coast Guard is, and you're absolutely right, a huge part of what we do at the Department of Homeland Security. And they have incredible cybersecurity expertise there. And we actually, I meet with the Admiral and the Captain, Admiral Day on a weekly basis. And we're looking at how we can do some of that hostage swapping there within the Coast Guard too, where we can shift people in and out. Coast Guard has some great forensics talent, and we're bringing that into the broader DHS pool of expertise. So I haven't forgotten about my Coast Guard pals, really, even though I was in the Navy. But
I got,
that's it. Thank you.
Sorry.
One more
I
somewhere?
got one more. Sorry, sir. Hi, back here.
Oh, there you
Thanks
go.
very much. A quick question. As I've been told that for a civilian to get a sort of federal...
I'm sorry, I cannot understand what
I'm
you're
sorry. I've been told that for a civilian to get a federal job with cybersecurity, he would have to be sponsored by local law enforcement or another sort of smaller agency. Is that going to continue to be the case? Because it seems like that would be a big impediment.
I can't understand what he's saying. Can you understand what he's saying? Do what?
Does it really sound that bad?
So,
Okay. I'm sorry. Can you hear me okay?
I have really bad hearing and
Okay.
the microphone's bad. But what you're saying is you got to get hired by local law enforcement before you can get hired by big law enforcement?
That's my understanding, yes.
Okay, well, that's not true.
Okay.
So, you can go out to usajobs.com right now, and you'll see the list of jobs that are open at the Department of Homeland Security, and in fact, across the federal government. And there's certainly, like a lot of places, there are criteria, that you have to meet certain qualifications. But at least as far as I know, you don't have to have, minor league experience before you can jump to the major league.
Okay,
You just
cool.
have to have experience.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.